All right, everyone. It was a pretty bloody day in the market, and actually leading up to this crash, I started to see on the Bjorgum cloud a weakening and a change of sentiment. So last week we got news from the Fed that they were going to be lowering interest rates. This was actually received well originally because that's sort of the end goal of what people were looking for, right? Easier monetary policy means economic growth. Economic growth means bullish sentiment. Well, we started to get weakened earnings reports, also weakened jobs reports out there. So what I did is I moved a lot of my assets that I had in high volatility stocks, things like Mara, CleanSpark, even BTCO and EETH, which are basically the ability to trade Ethereum and Bitcoin without having to actually buy Ethereum and Bitcoin. It's on my Webull account. That's what I use for buying and sell or trading essentially. And it's just easier to do than actually doing it on Kraken and all that. So I moved all of that into either cash or into the S&P 500 as those were lower volatility. And the reason why I did that was because of this Bjorgum cloud right here. And this right here, I believe, was the jobs reports. It was either here or here, which just further kind of increased my belief that the sentiment was changing. There's a couple of YouTube finance YouTubers out there that were making predictions leading up to this, if you want to call it a crash, this downturn. So I want to go over them real quick. The first was that I want to point out is Meet Kevin. Now, he is a self-proclaimed flip-flopper, so this is not a dig. It's just an analysis on his picks, and he actually got this flip-flop right. So leading into the week, earlier last week, he said that he was very bullish. He talked about his infamous Nike swoop recovery, which to me, originally, from my understanding of watching his videos, this was originally the Nike swoop recovery, and then it became this over time. So I'm not really sure what was supposed to be his Nike swoop recovery, but nonetheless, he was very bullish earlier in the week, and he actually opened some calls according to him, and he made money on those calls according to him. So I don't know exactly when. My guess would be he bought somewhere around anywhere from the 25th to probably the 30th at the very latest, if I'm checking my dates exactly accurately. Well, on Friday, he sent out a message, and he just said he screwed up. He told his audience, and I'll give him credit for that. He said, "I screwed up. I'm wrong. I'm going bearish. We're entering a recession." Now, his current sentiment as of now is that we are entering a recession. So we're going to make note of that, and we're going to keep track and decide whether or not down the road that becomes true. Now, the yield curve is inverted, which means generally historically that leads to a recession. Now, we have to keep in mind that the Fed is trying a soft landing, something they haven't really done or tried to do in the past. Remember the Paul Volcker, raise interest rates really high to get inflation down. That causes a recession. Everyone was afraid of 2008. And everyone remembers 2008 very well. We call it a recession, but it was pretty bad. It might have even been a depression, because now when we go back and look at recessions, we look at them through the lens of 2008, which was really bad. A recession does not have to be that bad at all. And a recession literally can be COVID, if we're going to go back here onto the weekly. So it's a little easier to move over there. This was also a recession. Now, I know it was an anomaly, but nonetheless, it was a recession. So nonetheless, Meet Kevin completely flip-flopped on Friday from probably 2 days earlier on Wednesday when he initially was bullish. He now says we're in a recession. I am looking at right now actually, first let's get into a couple other YouTubers I want to get out. I want to point out. So Ziptrader is the other one I want to point out. Now, Ziptrader, I was actually going to do a video on because he was talking about a similar strategy that I pointed out. I would say maybe 2 weeks ago now. I'll bring up Snapchat If any of you remember, I talked about buying at the floor of certain stocks like Snapchat, DocuSign, SoFi, maybe CleanSpark and Mara. I think we're like kind of like play it safe, but you could possibly do that. And he talked about how really the overvalue now is in the safe stocks, Apple, the blue chip, Apple, Microsoft. You can even count NVIDIA into that. And the lower risk stocks now are the ones that just got completely annihilated when the Fed started raising interest rates, which would be Snapchat, DocuSign, those kinds of things. CleanSpark, like I said, Marathon Holdings, and SoFi. SoFi is one that I'm actually really interested in right now for this floor, right? So we have this floor, and Ziptrader was talking about buying sort of these drastically beaten down stocks. Now, before that Ziptrader video came out, I made a video talking about buying at the floor. And we have reached the floor of Snapchat at least, and we have held so far at the floor. We have not broken it, although we do not have much more to go on the downside before we break it. If we break it, who knows where it could go back to. Let's just look at previous lows. We have a low of about $5, so we could definitely see Snapchat go to the lower end $5. So when I made this video, a lot of those stocks like Snapchat were at the higher end of that range. We talked about buying at the floor and selling up at the ceiling, or maybe holding on to some of it and just selling out some of your position at the ceiling and then reloading again at the bottom. So Snapchat is one that you're going to want to watch, or at least I would personally watch. I don't want to suggest what you should or should not do. But that is going to be potentially a huge opportunity, especially if the stock market starts to recover. You got to remember, a lot of this stuff isn't new news, right? And the new news isn't directly correlated to the stock market. So what I mean by that is everyone was excited about the Fed lowering interest rates. Well, now they're doing it and everyone's scared. Everyone was saying that the jobs, unemployment is too low. The unemployment has to rise in order for the Fed to lower the interest rates, which is ultimately what we want to do. Well, we got a weekend jobs report, and now everyone's freaking out. Inflation is down, but it's being a little sticky. But then we got something, and I don't know too much about it, but something having to do with Japan, and they have a lower interest rate. So a lot of people are buying yen at like 1.5% and then buying securities in the United States, bonds, stocks, things like that. That I don't see how it necessarily has a direct correlation. Bitcoin started to tumble when Iran and some other countries were threatening to invade Israel over the weekend. That doesn't have anything necessarily, at least in the short term, to deal with the stock market. I really think a lot of this is people taking profits, having the greed being so high for so long that now that we're getting some sort of bad news, or now that what is expected to be here is now here, people are now selling off. So Warren Buffett said, be greedy when other people are fearful, and be fearful when other people are greedy. And this is a huge opportunity, one, for this one strategy right here. Again, this is a higher risk strategy. You want to buy the floor. I personally would not put a ton of money into it. But again, this is not financial advice. This is just my personal take on the market, just like these other YouTubers out there, right, that we're analyzing. Let's go to the S&P 500. Before I get into this, I just want to talk about one more YouTube channel out there that is Everything Money. Everything Money has been talking for a very long time about how the stock market is overbought. Even down here, they were still somewhat talking about the stock market being overbought, except I think around here, they're kind of actually talking about it being fair valued, and I think they bought a lot over here. This has been a huge rip. Don't take this for granted. It's so easy to take this for granted, but it was essentially a rip that lasted from March of March 10th of 2023 to August 2nd of 2024. And that's even if this doesn't just immediately recover, right? So there's going to be taking profits just like something like this. And it is time to treat this as a huge opportunity. This is not a time to be fearful. If you are fearful, that is because you have too much money in the stock market at its peak. So what you need to do is build up your cash, and anything you have in high volatile stocks should either be moved to cash. In my personal opinion, this is what I'm doing. This is not what you should do. Move to cash. I've moved my stuff to cash, and I've moved my stuff to lower volatile stocks like the S&P 500. Now, we have some support lines right here. We blew absolutely completely through two of them. I drew these top two support lines for myself on Friday, and because I saw this downturn, I was interested in potentially getting a bounce off of this top one right here. And then if we were going to play it from there, essentially, I was going to see where the peak was, if it was a lower high or if it was a higher high to continuing to the top. We went completely right through them, and we came all the way down to this last one. I drew this last one actually before market open this morning. So I was anticipating a bounce, and we actually did get a bounce off of this. So you can see exactly how important and how reliable support lines are. There's obviously no telling whether or not they're going to completely fall through or not, but it's a good gauge, and you can see how accurate that was. I mean, I drew that up on the daily, and that's pretty significant right there, pretty accurate. So we have a bounce. You can see right now we are actually retesting this top one. And if we can see consolidation, we might start to see a reverse. I want to go back to the daily real quick, because the most important thing that we're going to be looking at for a market turnaround is the MACD and the RSI. So let's bring up the MACD right now. And you can see, I'm going to shorten this real quick. You can see when the blue line is generally over the yellow line, there is a bullish sentiment, and then reverse is lower sentiment. We are obviously, let's just bring this up, we're obviously in a downturn right here, but you can see how short these downturns last. Like this last one was pretty short. Last one was short, and this one ran for a while. This one even ran for a good while. So let's shorten that up, right? You can see temporary fall, long increase. Temporary fall, long increase. So buying right around here, buying around here, buying around here is potentially a really good opportunity. The other thing to look for is oversold on the RSI, right? So this right here, if you just want to move this over so I can show you, right here was essentially the bottom of this little scare right here, and that was the bottom of the RSI. You had the bottom right here on the RSI, and you saw a big increase, right? We can go even back to this big scare, right? If you were to just have bought whenever the RSI was low, you would have bought here, you would have bought here, right down here somewhere. You would have bought here somewhere. You would have bought here. You would have bought every single low point going all the way up. And that is efficient swing trading. All right. So it'll be interesting to see what me, Kevin, Ziptrader, and Everything Money have to say down the road. But this is, just my take on it. This, according to the RSI, is a good buying opportunity if you're using that same strategy of just buying the dip at the low points, If a strategy is going to be buy on recovery, well, you want to see something like this. You want to see the blue MACD line cross above the yellow line, and you want to see this RSI line start to use the yellow moving average on the RSI as a support once again. So seeing this RSI turn around and cross, or at least close in on that yellow simple moving average, is going to be a big signal for a bullish entry. That's all I have for you. Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to hear your take on some of these other YouTubers out there. Until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks.